everyone, Madilynn Dale here, the Chapter Goddess. I am a mom, author, blogger, freelancer, podcaster, producer, and overall creative. With this show, I really want to focus on creatives and bring their authentic self to life. How are they motivated to pursue their passions? What have been the struggles along the way? Does self-care play an important role in who they are today and how they connect with the creative flow? Bringing one's authentic self to the forefront is important in this world that we live in currently. Sharing your self-care, your tips, and how you stay on track for things without losing it completely is also important. Self-care is not talked about enough, and authenticity and self-care are what I like to highlight with my creatives, as well as getting to know them. So get ready for a fun and entertaining show. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get ready to meet this episode's guest. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Chapter Goddess. I have a fun creative for you guys to meet today, and we've been chatting beforehand, so I know this is going to be a great conversation. Don't forget to hit that like button while you're here, subscribe if you haven't, and let's go ahead and dive on in. Let me bring in our guest. Hey.
Hi, it's great to be here. I love your introduction. I was like,
Thank you.
So much to learn.
Fun. Like, I love the upbeat music, and it kind of brings in the happiness and joy just automatically. But
it does.
Go ahead and tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure, I'll be happy to. And again, thank you for letting me be on your show. It's quite an honor. And for all those listening and watching, my name is Diann Floyd Boehm, and I am a former educator in the classroom. And now I write children's books, and I have my first young adult historical fiction book out. And guess where it takes place? In Oklahoma.
Yes. I love it. And she says that because we're both pretty much Okies, like by blood.
Yeah. I was raised in Texas, but I have so many cousins there. I'm always up there.
Yes, it's awesome. It's a great fun state. And I actually was born in Texas, and then we moved to Oklahoma. So it's kind of, yeah.
That's funny.
But let's go ahead and dive in and start talking about your latest children's book. It's Charlie and the Tire Swing.
Yes, that's correct. So Charlie and Tire Swing is really precious to me. Actually, all my stories are, because each one has such a special message. And for Charlie, what I really wanted was this is Charlie and the Tire Swing and how it began. And I wanted to have a book that's intergenerational, so that when you read the story and you're reading it to your loved one, that they're like, wait, there's a grandpa and a great-grandpa? And now you're telling me there's a great-great-grandpa? Do I have all that? And so a family history becomes alive with their own children. And I love it now when I get an email and someone says, so my child's having me make a family tree. And I'm like, yes, because that's important to me.
Yes, I love those.
Thank you. And so it's a multi-layer story, and really the grade level, third graders love it. Fifth graders love it because they also study family history in some of the schools in the curriculum. And but the thing is that it's imagination. And, it's really funny. I helped bring technology in the classroom with the first computers and so forth. And now I'm going backwards. I'm like, we need to put these things down. We need to get unwired and we just need to go out and look at the clouds and what do you see in the shapes and so forth. So Charlie and the Tire Swing is based on when my son was a little one, and he had lots of adventures on his tire swing. And he would say, Mama, come out with me. I'm going to go on an adventure. I'm going to be Dick Tracy today. And by the time he finished, there was this whole story behind it. And I thought, you know what? We need books like that. And so that's how Charlie came to be.
I love it because that's so true. I, as a mom myself, have really pushed my child to be more outdoorsy. Like, let's go outside and play. I put time limits on his Kindle and stuff because a lot of kids are super attached to like their iPads or anything like that. I'm like, nope. We are not doing that. You're going to go play in the dirt, dude. Like, that's what we did growing up. Play in the dirt, play with your sticks.
Make some mud pies.
Yes.
Yes.
And he loves it because he also, you mentioned on the document that you like to garden too. I've got him involved in gardening and stuff. And there's a lot that kids can learn in that. And
oh, there's so much.
Yeah,
and it's good that you brought that up because in Charlie, and how it began.
Yeah.
What happens is Charlie is he was sitting in his grandpa's kitchen, and in the kitchen windows, one of these long rectangular windows, and you can see this massive oak tree. And so he says to Grandpa Jack, how did that tree get so big? And Grandpa Jack makes some hot chocolate and tells a story. And that's how you get all the generations. Yeah. And so he shares how his grandpa had an acorn from his great grandpa. So Aww. You have to follow. Yeah. And so in the story, you see the different seasons, and Grandpa Jack is all worried because he's like, nothing's happening. And now it's cold outside and nothing's happening. And he says his grandpa kept telling him, just be patient. A lot of magic is happening, and spring comes and then up pops a little bit of this tree, right? And so again, it shows the kids, seasons, beautiful things take time. And so by you gardening, that's what kids are learning. Yes. Patience and beauty and miracles, right?
Oh yeah. He loves, because we started the seeds and stuff early, like in the house, and then moved them out. So we've already got plants that are trying to fruit, like the squash and stuff I planted is already trying to fruit. I'm like, not yet. So we've got to learn a little bit about like pruning and like different types of soil conservation and what types of soils are better for different things. It's just been a lot of fun. I love that you tie the generational stuff into it, because I've actually, with the gardening thing, my grandpa, which is his great grandpa, has a huge garden every year. And like my great grandparents before that, I remember playing in theirs. They had like a whole like 2 acres, just all of it was garden.
Oh, stuff. How lovely.
And that's kind of like been passed down. And I feel like it's kind of passing down to him, because my grandpa will take and like walk him through the garden and point out stuff. And it's so cool.
That is so cool and so precious.
Yes.
That's happy memories.
It is. So Charlie is with his grandparents, and he's learning about where the tree started, and tire swing, something that which grandpa put the tire
swing? So that's what's really cool, and thank you for asking. So of course he goes home, and comes back and visits on the weekend and so forth. But after he finishes the story, he says, come on out with me. So Charlie and his grandpa go out to the garage, and there's an old tire. And then they go back out to the tree, and Grandpa Jack shares with him, like, now it's your turn to have adventures. And the tire swing goes up for the first time.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
And so the story continues with him and the tire swing and his adventures.
Correct. And I'm working on, so now what I really like to do is write some easy reader books so that young kids who fell in love with the story and Charlie, now as they're learning how to read, and I used to teach, I think I told you earlier, preschool and kinder, that, I'm looking at all the different sight words to make sure I have them in there and so forth. and just have fun, easy reading for first readers to have, and small adventures and their little short stories. And I wanted to not only make it fun for reading, but also for the kiddos to go, I think I'm going to go outside now and have an adventure too, Mama.
Yes, that does, because it really inspires them when they hear those stories. They want to go now and do the adventure now, like not like plan it out. They're like, no, we go now.
Now,
hey,
right.
Let's go do this.
Go. Yeah, exactly.
What is the process like from start to finish when creating a children's book?
Another excellent question. For everyone, it's different. So I've learned now in the author world that I'm a pantster, which means I don't sit there and outline. For me personally, I get an idea and I just let it, sort of fester in my brain and kind of grow. And then all of a sudden it just comes to me, and it might be in the middle of the night. It might be when I'm washing dishes, whenever. But then I sit down, and sometimes if I'm on the road, it's pen to paper, and other times it's on the computer. And I write the story, just write the story. And then I go back and edit and look at things, and until it, it's like taking clay and molding it. Is the way I like to think. Is I write it and I have this blob, of words, and then I shape and form it. So that's my process.
I like it. How long does it normally take when you complete like the manuscript for it to kind of go from there to the printer, like with all the illustrations and stuff?
Oh, you really are good with your questions. I love it, because I want people to know it just doesn't happen overnight. So again, for everyone, it's different. For me, I'll be thinking about, and I never use the same illustrator. I like to use a variety of people depending on what I'm trying to get across. But I also like to give opportunities for people who have always wanted to illustrate, but they didn't know how to get started. And I like to think, if I've been blessed, I want to turn around and open those doors for others. And so I use different illustrators. And so for some illustrators, they can just pop those things out. But generally, it'll take, almost a year. So, but in the meantime, I'm still writing while they're doing their thing and sharing stuff. And, you have to work with the editor and the publisher and so forth. So,
yeah, it takes a team to make a book happen. And that's something a lot of people, like you mentioned, they don't see that back work.
No, and you're absolutely right. And I've won several awards for almost all my books. And people, when I go and say thank you, I make sure every single person is credited, because that book would not have created the magic if it hadn't been for the illustrator, if it hadn't been for the publisher, if it hadn't been for the person who figured out the best way to lay it out, the person who's the layout design person. Yeah. And so, I just want them to know that this is our award. Yes. So that's important to me.
It is. And I love that you bring them into it, because they do have a piece in that book that made it happen.
Exactly. Exactly. Amazing. And then I thank the angels for giving me the story. That's important to me as well.
That creative flow to create it. Oh, that is so amazing. On top of writing your children's book and the historical fiction, you are also part of a radio show, right?
That is correct. It's a live streaming, live stream TV is live streaming is going sort of TV. So it's USA Global TV and radio. Yeah. And it's pretty cool. I am on 3 shows at the moment, and it's global, obviously. And so I have the Corner Bookstore, where I do something similar to you. I co-host it with Dr. Jacqueline, because that's really fun. I enjoy co-hosting. Yeah. And we have different authors on. And then we just started another one called, which actually you should come be on it. It's called Once Upon a Time. We're thinking of looking into a new title, but we'll see. And that's for anyone that has something to do, not just with books, but with creativity with children. So we could have a one-stop shop for parents to go to get ideas, whether it's clothes, toys, music, books, etc. So I'm really excited to see where that goes. It just started. And then I do this other show that it just absolutely love. I'm totally American. I enjoy all the royal stuff going on.
Yes.
So we had the UK News and Culture show,
Mhm.
and there's 4 of us, and 3 of them are from one from Scotland and 2 from England, and they give us the updates on the royals as well as great things that are happening in the UK as a whole, and that's just a really fun show. And these and Dr. Jacqueline I'm her co-host,
Uh-huh.
and that is just awesome to be a part of. Just so awesome.
Yes. How do you balance everything and continue to write?
Another good question. Well, I am one of these people, like you've seen that little commercial with the battery, the little
Yes.
toys like,
Like the
and then all of a
energizer
sudden,
bunny.
it dies. So when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, thank you, Lord. And then I wake up and I'm like, okay, I have this, la, 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 and I don't even plan out my day because I like to see what happens naturally. I mean, I have some thoughts like, yes, I do need to pull those weeds in the garden, or put the washing in. But anyway, I just go because I feel like when a person is able to open their eyes and they've been blessed with another day, I want to make the most of it. I mean, I really believe this from the bottom of my heart because someone else didn't get to open their eyes. My mom, my dad, for instance, and I know they would love to have their eyes open. And so whatever I can do where I can think about by the end of the day that I've done something that made somebody smile or, touch someone's heart in some way,
Yeah.
that, I've done something good. And then on top of that, if I finished a story or came up with a new one, whatever it is, or I'm learning how to, taking art classes online or something, right? And I enjoy quilting. So I really try to, I'm very eclectic. I really try to cram in as much as that I can learn on earth that I possibly can.
I'm
So,
kind of the same way with that because I mean, I do the art stuff, which I've
mhm.
really picked up lately, just trying to incorporate more for my son. But yeah, like the whole quilting thing, and it's been a long time since I've done that, but I've picked up embroidery again because that's how my grandmother and great grandmother taught me to sew. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to teach my son because that's an important life skill. You got to occasionally fix clothing. So
That is so true. And
yeah,
embroidery, my mom was so good at it that she tried teaching me. And I remember I was just about 10 years old. And I even told her this story. She's like, Son, you just do not embroider anything. Mama, I'll never forgive you for ripping all my stuff out. Because she wanted to, her grandma, my great grandma, who from Oilton, Oklahoma, by the way,
yeah.
said it has to be just as beautiful on the outside as on the inside.
Oh my
So
god.
mama flipped my work over and it was not a pretty sight, even though the other side looked pretty good, right? And she goes,
Yeah.
no, honey, that won't work. And
Oh
out it went. And I was like,
no.
oh my gosh.
Good. I'm glad my grandmothers were not that brutal, but I totally get that because, like, there's some that are very, very, like, particular about their embroidery, and,
And that's
like,
why it's so
it's
good,
a
right?
it's a fun thing, though, when you don't make make
Yes.
it that important.
So, and my mom could knit and she knitted so well. So I took up crocheting.
Hey, there you go. That is something I've always wanted to try to do. I just haven't found the time to, like, sit down and
Yeah,
do it because
yeah,
I kind of cram my schedule full like you do, so
yeah, yeah.
but
I can
sorry, go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, no, I was going to say I could tell you have a lot of energy and a beautiful spirit, so it only makes sense, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of creative energy kind of like
Yeah.
has to come out in some way. I can't like contain it.
Yes.
So, and my son's got a lot of it too. It makes me happy to see him have the same kind of energy for crafty, creative stuff as I do. Because my sister's like, no, I'm good. I'm gonna go stick over here like with my school stuff, and I'm going to do my doctorate and blah blah blah. I'm like, okay. Like, but like, take this
And
off.
praise God for people like that,
Yes,
because we need those doctors to fix us up, and nurses,
true.
etc. So,
She's very
but
focused on it, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go over
yeah,
here and write another book. So,
yeah.
but it's crazy to see that you've got so much that you're doing and accomplishing it. And like, it
Thank
brings up
you.
another question about, I like to ask all of my creatives about self-care.
Okay.
How do you keep yourself mentally like flexible and stuff and in a good place to keep doing what you're doing?
Self-care is so wonderful, and I really appreciated you talking about that in your intro. And
Yeah.
I actually have a daughter who does coaching all about self-care, so that's a thing that hits home in many levels. For
Mhm.
me, ever since I can remember, going for long walks, laying in the clouds, and with my mom, and dad, they really encourage imagination. So now as an adult, walks are important, though not in the heat of the summer. Let
Oh
me
no,
tell you, it's
definitely not.
not going to happen in Texas, right? It's like AC all the way. Thank you, Lord, for
Yes.
letting me be born at this time
Especially
that we
like
have
you said in
AC, right?
Texas, it's a
Yeah.
brutal heat. Don't miss
Brutal,
that.
brutal.
So,
But I love gardening. And I cracked up inside when you mentioned earlier about having your kids go out and play. And I thought, what a good mama. And I'll share a side note with you in how important that is. And it's part of self care. So now where we live out sort of in the county, we have a lovely creek that goes by. And my son, and his was little at the time, and he had maybe about fourth grade or so forth. He had a friend over, and they were just like Nintendo or Game Boy, whatever it was at the time, playing. I thought, you guys are going to go out and use your brain, and have fun and discover things. We got a whole creek out there. I have 5 brothers. We would have killed to have had something like that, right?
yeah.
So I take them outside, and we walk to the creek, and all of a sudden there's a turtle, which is very rare. And so I said, well, we need to catch that turtle. And they're like, what? And I'm like, oh, Lordy, I've never touched a turtle in my life. My brothers are supposed to do that. And my brain's going 100 miles a minute. And I'm like, I'm going to pretend I'm Danny, and I'm going to pick up that turtle just the way he used to. So I picked up that turtle like it was no big deal to them. And all of a sudden the boys are like, okay, I'll try it, and so forth. So then we we get something for the turtle, to crawl around in and all this kind of stuff. And then they have fun, and then they get a little bored. And my son's friend said, has your mama had enough nostalgia so you can go back inside?
Oh my
So I said, well, let's go put the turtle back in its home so it can swim to its mama, as if I know, right? And so I said, it's always important never to keep them. And we put it back, and it swam away. But he he still talks about that day catching his first turtle.
That is too funny. But like
Yeah.
that is, I remember doing that as a kid. And I guess because my siblings and I, we kind of hit the like techie stuff late because we grew up in a rural part of our state, like rural
Mhm.
Oklahoma. So we spent a lot of time at the creek. I remember finding salamanders and
Yeah,
catching
yeah,
crawdads and all kinds of stuff. And like that was
exactly.
the best thing. I mean, we had it. I remember we got a Nintendo at some point, but like we'd rather go to the creek and like do stuff there just because like there was always something different. And there was like you lift the rocks up and there's something crawling on the bottom of the rock. So it's just
Absolutely, and little doodle bugs and all that. And so for me, even to this day, going down to the creek or whatever and just seeing what's going on in the world, right? Or, if I see a little doodle bug crawling and I think, oh, you've lost your way, I'll get a little stick and put it, up on a leaf somewhere so it can be safe. And that is sort of my self-care, is just being with nature.
yes, it's very refreshing and it
Mhm.
kind of cleanses the creative palette.
Yeah. And
And
and then I didn't mean to cut you off. And then, of
you're
course,
good.
I have to say being in the ocean, going to the ocean. even in the wintertime, and just hearing the waves crashing in. People go, oh, Galveston is so ugly. But yeah, well, it's not clear blue, but it is sort of in this part where everything comes in at once in the Gulf of
Yes.
Mexico. But if that's where you grew up and that's your childhood memories, then for you, it's beauty because you held gorgeous memories from your family. And so hearing the water, it's magical to me.
Yes, no, I agree. I think the few times I've got to go to Galveston, there was one of them, there was a lot of seaweed that had washed up
Oh, yeah.
or something because the currents had changed, or I
Mhm.
can't remember. But it's still like that, being on the sand, hearing that water, feeling the breeze and smelling the salt in the air. That's just the picture perfect of like relaxation, just a refresh.
Oh,
So,
man. Yeah, that is so true.
yeah.
And you can actually get in the water because it's
Yes.
bathtub when
Yes,
it's freezing
warm.
cold.
Yes. Watch for jellyfish though. So
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I did
Yeah,
have
that's
my
true.
first encounter with a jellyfish in Galveston when I was a kid. So
That is not fun.
no, so crazy. But to take us back to a little bit to the book and your creativity, you also have this amazing room behind you. Tell us more about that room and how it plays into your creativity.
So this is the story garden. And before COVID, I was always having lots of authors come in and read their stories. I need to get back to that, but this is called the story garden. And let's see which way I got. This way. That is a sunflower, and it's three-dimensional. Actually, even the leaf is three-dimensional.
So cool.
And the background is painted with some sand in it because I really wanted to have a lot of texture in the sky. So
Yeah.
that was really fun, and I'm really proud of that. So sunflowers, I love what they stand for. There's beautiful songs about sunflowers, and then it was my daddy's favorite flower, and then it became my mom's. Now it's mine. But the books that are behind me are all children's books. There's some history books that I use. The books are either books that I had when I was little and my mom would read to me, and then they go up to books that were our children's, and hopefully one day they'll put them in their library. I know my son's already taken quite a few, and my daughter's like, "Don't you give away the books Grandma gave me." So, and then there's books my books, as well as books that I have from friends who've written and so forth. So I call this the story garden. It's also the room of imagination. And this is where everything fun takes place. This other fun book called A Time to Fly. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, no.
A Time to Fly.
Ooh, tell me more about that one.
So Nancy Hoover is the illustrator for this one, and both books came out about the same time. And this one, Charlie's published by OC Publishing, and this one is by Texas Sister Press. And Time to Fly is based on something that really happened in our home, where some bluebirds laid some eggs, and we kept watching them. And one bird didn't want to fly. And we watched this mama and daddy try to talk this bird into flying until finally it did. And I was like, you know what? That's a story. Because even as adults have moments like, oh my gosh, can I really do this? Right? Can I do this? Can I do this? And then, oh my gosh, I'm doing it. So that a parent, or grandma, whomever, reading to their loved one, and the kid's like, yeah, I think I can. And the grandparents like thinking, maybe I will take that new job. I think this book was for me, right? And so I like to think that book is ageless for sure. The illustrations are gorgeous, and the way I wrote it where the mama encourages the child that you can. She tells a story about how he was born, and she just tells a tiny bit and says, now flap one time, and then she tells a little bit more and she goes, now flap two times. So when I'm reading it to the young kids in school, now that we can be back in schools, I get them to flap, and pretty soon the bird's like flapping, it's seeing itself go up, and before you know it, the bird takes off, and then the bird, it's like, I knew I could do that, right?
Yeah, that is awesome, and I love how children's books do kind of speak to the parent too, like when you're
Yeah.
reading it to it, because I've had that thought kind of like that, not for like a job or something, but for
Mm,
something similar, just reading a book to my son, and he'll
yeah.
look at me like, why are you quiet, Mom? I was like, oh, I'm sorry. We'll keep going. Like, I just got lost in a thought, and it's crazy, but
I
this,
know it's crazy. And, a lot of people say, oh, children's books are just for children, but I disagree. I think a well-written children's book is multi-layer, and the author is speaking to the adult as well, and we all can learn from it. And so I tell people, go to the children's section, find out there might be the answer to your problem in one of those books.
oh my gosh, so true. And even
Mhm.
like at the library and stuff, they have them displayed where you can pick them out easier, and it kind of gives you
Yes.
an idea of the message of the book too.
Right, that is true, and we need to make more use of libraries, so I'm
Yeah.
glad you mentioned that.
And I feel like I've kind of been pushing that with some of my posts and my blog stuff. I've been going and taking my son to the library because
Good
growing
for
up,
you.
that's what we did, but we didn't have a huge children's section where I grew up. And
Mhm,
ours here is amazing for the
mhm.
kids. And it's just, they've got like the little kids section, then a like a little bit later, like pre-K kindergarten section, and they've got the juvenile section, and it's just like they've got toys and like a little kitchenette and stuff and computers for them to
Wow,
get on. And I'm just like,
that's amazing.
wow. So,
Yeah,
and we just go up there, we'll go to read, or like yesterday we went and I taught him how to start looking at stuff on the computer to utilize their games and stuff. But yeah, they're
mhm.
definitely undervalued, and there's so many great children's books.
They
So,
are, and also, when they get their very own library card,
mhm.
I remember feeling so grown up having that card and taking the books by myself and handing them to the lady, and she takes it and she stamps, and I'm like, "Wow, I'm a big girl now."
Yes, so now they scan them, and my son loves it.
Yeah, they
He
too, they
loves
scan.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
but
just
that was fun to watch the stamp.
yes. Oh, I remember the stamps. Like, it's kind of that's the nostalgic thing, 'cause I feel like it went
Yeah,
away in my childhood, the stamping of
mhm.
books, 'cause
Yeah, I guess I dated myself.
it's like it just and I don't know, it was just a look, especially like in, textbooks at the
Mhm,
school, you could find,
mhm.
like, your older sibling or a friend had this book the year before, you're like, "Oh, hey, I have your old textbook," and, like
That is a cool feeling, isn't it,
yes,
right?
now you don't get to really do that, but
No. But, the
oh,
other thing that library card does is it
mhm.
teaches responsibility.
Does, yeah.
And, every little baby step that we can teach a child to be responsible
Mhm.
helps with the next level of responsibility. You don't wait till they're 16, you wait till, you
Yeah.
know, "Now, that's a library card. You need to take care of that." "Oh, don't worry, I will, mama." And they're like, "Okay, get your library card." "Oh my god, I forgot where I put it." No. But it is a good responsibility, it's a good beginning,
It is,
right?
and they've also gotta learn to take care of the books too, like, they borrow it, like,
Mhm.
"Okay, like,
Mhm.
this is a library book, this is not one we own, you can't mess it up, you can't have it around the water, you can't eat by it, like, this you gotta take care of it because it's not ours, it's borrowed, so you have to take it back, and it's gotta be in good condition." So
Excellent point. Absolutely.
gosh, and it's the that whole, like, their eyes get big when you tell them that, "Oh my gosh, like, this is a big deal." Like, "Oh
Yeah.
my gosh." So you got this, you got this.
Absolutely.
So what do you have planned for the future with your writing and children's books?
So I have a book coming out in July.
Mhm.
It's called, you're the second person I've been able to tell about it.
Oh,
So it's called Dylan the Curious Bunny, and I'm just thrilled about it. And
mhm,
the artist is the same as with Charlie, Judy Gaudette. She's up in Maine, and she's creating magic, having Dylan come
mhm,
alive. And so that'll come out in July,
mhm.
and it's with another publishing company. So I am so blessed. I have three publishers now. So this is
Yeah.
Norrin's Triad Publications,
Mhm,
and I feel very honored to be with them. And Then also, C Publishing, which was my very first publisher, is we're working on. I mentioned earlier I have a young adult historical fiction, so
Yeah.
that's called Rise: A Girl's Struggle for More, and it's based on my grandma. And again, it's historical fiction. It takes place in towns you might already know them, called Oilton and Drumright, during the days of the oil boom.
Ooh.
And anyway, that book did so well. It was on Amazon's hot list for a little while, so that was pretty cool, right? At least I thought. And that she's had enough requests for people asking, so what happened to Ruby? What's next, right? So I'm in the second edit of that book, and we hope to have it out in October. And so that'll take place between Oklahoma and majority of it in Chicago.
Ooh, that would be fun and an interesting read. So that's kind of like a good, it teaches history about our state too. So
it does. And matter of fact, I did my opening of the book at the Drumright Museum.
Oh,
so,
yay! That is awesome.
Yeah. So I'll probably do that again. So
that would kind of be like a living history version in a way too. So
it was, because a lot of things took place. And I'll just do a shout out. Drumright, Oklahoma has one of the best museums. And now the Smithsonian, I don't know if you know it or not, but the Smithsonian in DC loves everything at the Drumright Museum that it's made it part of the Smithsonian. And Tammy Poser just works really hard, she and her group, the board, to make it one of the finest museums in Oklahoma.
That is amazing. And that's going to go on my bucket list for a it's pretty close. So awesome. So if you could give a piece of advice to somebody who's just started their journey as an author, what kind of advice would you give them?
Oh my goodness. It took me so long to get published. And so no matter how many no's you get, you just keep writing. Because if you have fire in your gut and you know there's a story that you just have to get out, which is what I mean by fire in the gut, it took me years. Just keep writing. And one day it's going to happen. You just have to believe in yourself. It's like in the book, A Time to Fly. Just don't give up. You can do it. But one thing that I wished that I had known at the very beginning is I didn't know that authors can have publicists. I always think of movie stars, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't know there's people that specialize in authors. And so many years had gone by. And then finally I was in this one author group, and join as many author groups, and don't think you have to have your book published to be part of an author group. No, the authors, we stick together, we help each other, and they take you on a journey. It's so lovely. They're not competing. We don't compete with each other. And so having a publicist, one that works with your personality, I would say is so lovely, because they help you with that marketing. Because I even had an article published, I guess about maybe a month ago, and it's called Taming the Beast - Social Media. And, we authors were not made to sit there and market and do social media. And of course, if you're from my generation, it's a whole new beast all in itself, but you can do it. But a publicist certainly helps.
Yeah, I agree 100% there, because it is like, social media it's a lot. So.
It's so much.
But Diann, go ahead and tell our listeners and viewers where they can find you and your work.
Sure. So everyone, thank you for listening and watching, whichever way it is. And you can reach me at my website. That's the easiest, because you can find all my social media from there. And it's Diann Floyd. It looks like Boehm, but it's Boehm.com. So DiannFloydBoehm.com. And for those who are listening on the radio, it's DiannFloydBoehm.com. Floyd's my maiden name, and I promised my daddy I'd use it.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. I hope I see you again.
Yes. And thank you guys for listening. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe, and we'll chat again soon. I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to get future notifications when shows come out. Also, be sure to check out my website. I have a blog featuring this creative with some other fun and interesting questions. You can also subscribe to my newsletter there to stay up to date with all things the chapter goddess and Madilynn Dale. Once again, thanks for watching and have a great rest of the day.